Okay, so we're going to continue working on our project, and like I said earlier on, we're going to be using Flask. So looking at this project now, I already have it set up as an empty project. So we have our app.python file or app.py file. It's currently empty, and this is where we're going to be focusing most of our energy on. Then the index.html, right? Remember when we were talking about the n-tier architecture, we said the front end is made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So this is the HTML file we're going to use. So in a Flask project, the HTML files are stored in a folder called templates. Then your CSS and JavaScript are stored in a folder called static. So we're not going to be writing any CSS or JavaScript in this course. So we're just going to use already written CSS, which is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is a CSS and JavaScript package that allows you to quickly build very good looking user interfaces without writing the CSS and JavaScript yourself. So this is CSS. This is some fonts for glyph icons, like some of those icons you see in web applications. For, let's say, password, you have a padlock next to it and so on. Then we have the JavaScript. So we have jQuery, we have Node, we have Bootstrap. So for the sake of this course, you just need to know what these things do, which is the CSS and the JavaScript. So CSS just adds color, style to your website. JavaScript adds fluidity to give it that feeling that something is happening, right? Interactiveness, basically. Then the HTML is what everything is wrapped on top of. So you can see the HTML as the skeleton of the website. Then you can see the CSS, or the JavaScript as the muscles, like your muscles allow your body to move, right? Then you can see the CSS as the skin that gives you that presentable look. So that's just basically what we have. So we're going to be doing most of our work in app.py. So let me show you our database. So we're going to be using the same database as before. So even if you're using WAMP, this is not WAMP currently, but even if you're using WAMP, if you follow the previous video I sent to you, you should have something like this already set up and working. So we have this already. So this is our database. So we're going to connect to this database and write to the table, which is store our information into the table. So for us to use Flask, we now have to import some components within Flask. So we're saying from the Flask library. So we are going to import Flask. Then we're going to import render template. So render template is going to allow us to render our HTML files. So that's why it's going to help us render the templates. So that's why this folder itself is called templates. Then we have request, because remember, we're making, whenever we send data out, we are making a request to database. Then we have URL4, and we have flash. So the URL4 is what just allows us to map our HTML buttons to a particular action in Python. So we can trigger a particular function using this URL4. Then the flash just gives us a flashing message whenever we successfully insert an item to a database. We want to now flash a message telling the user that data added successfully or something. And now we need another library. So what we need from this library is So let's say we finish inserting a record, right? We may want to redirect the user to another page or redirect them back to the same page and reload that same page with the updated list of items. So we now add Flask MySQL DB. So from Flask MySQL DB, we want to import MySQL. So this is what is going to help us connect to our Flask to our MySQL database. So now I'm going to say app is equal to Flask so we have this set up now. Then let's create an app secret. So for this I'll just put some random data. So if we want to run our Flask application, you come to the terminal. At the bottom here you have the terminal. So once you come to the terminal, you can now do Flask run. So now it's you have a development server, so do not use this in production, use production whatever. So basically we are running in development mode now. So if we click this now, it's now taking us to our website. So at this stage now we've not pointed our HTML file to be rendered at this page, but you can see that we have our website set up and we have a 404 message saying not found. So for us to resolve this not found issue, it means we now have to have an app route. So our route is this. Now say def index is mainly the first page your users visit. So that's why we have this slash, right? Because there's nothing else. It's not if you have slash, let's say about, now that means you're going to the about page. If you have slash contact, it means you want to load the contact page, but now we're just loading the home page, which doesn't require any argument to run it. So I can now say return. This is where our render template comes in. So I can say return render template. And what template are we rendering? We are rendering index.html. So that's what we are rendering at this moment. So let's restart this server. So to stop the server, you use Ctrl+C, and that will stop the server. Then you can now run Flask run again, and let's see what we have this time. So this time we notice we have a blank page. So let's update the HTML page so that you see what we have. So let me just have h1 and say welcome to our website. Then kill the server and restart it again. So now notice we have this. So previously, before we rendered the template, we had a 404. So we resolved that by saying the home page, which is this, right? So if you look at this address, this 127.0.0.1 just means localhost, right? It's your home IP address, so it's your local host. But now we are accessing the website at port 5000. So if you look at this, with the same address here at port 5000, Then when we added this route, right? So if you notice, it's now telling us that okay, now we now had a get HTTP request, and it returned 200. So 200 just means it's successful. So that's why we're able to render the HTML template. Then previously, when we tried to load the website, the get statement here returned 404 because the page did not exist at that time. So now we have our page, and our page exists, right? So that's why we have this 200 error here saying that our page has been rendered. So let me go back. So we started from here, we fixed that to an empty page, then we added some piece of information to our empty page. So let's do some. So that's just basically what it takes for you to run a basic Flask website, an empty Flask website. So now let's come back to our HTML. So let's come back here and let's have where's this not going? So say doc type. So I have doc type HTML. And I have so we're not going to focus much on the HTML part of things, but I'm going to try as much as possible to explain what is going on. So whenever I write in HTML code, right, the parent or root item is HTML, so all our elements are within HTML. So this is just telling it that we're using English. Then you can now set some metadata. So you can say meta. So metadata is UTF. So we have this. I'm just going to copy this again for the next piece of metadata. So I'll change this to content. So I'll say Internet Explorer is equal to Edge. This is just for compatibility with Microsoft browsers, just in case you have someone that's still using Internet Explorer. Then lastly, we have another meta tag so this meta tag now is for responsiveness, because we want we want our application to be able to scale regardless of the size of the window. So viewport, then we have content. So I set this to width, width, initial scale is equal to 1.0. So now the next thing we're going to add is our title. So it's, for me, whenever you have tags that require a closing and opening and closing tag, all right, it's always good for you to close them first, then write in between. All these they don't require a closing tag, so that's why I wrote them like that. But for this one, I have to open and close, then I can now write this. So I can say drinks inventory, right? So now this is the title of our website. So let's just check that out again. So I'll run the server, come back, refresh. That text that was there before is gone, but you can see our title here at the top. We have drinks inventory as the title of our website. So now if you come here to more tools on your browser and you select developer tools, you're going to see a couple of things happening within your website. So you can see your website you can see your website's HTML rendered code here. You won't see anything Flask related. You're just going to see the HTML code and the CSS. Then if you have issues, you're going to see them in the console. Then there is source. Our address is this, source is index.html. So we're going to be using this a lot, so let me just keep this open so that we can monitor our website. Then you can also see if there are network problems, or if you have a particular request that takes very long on your website, you're going to see it here. So let's come back to our HTML. I want us to just finish the basics of this, then we can proceed to the Python part. You can say link. So now using the link tag, basically we're trying to point our HTML file to the style sheet it's supposed to use, to the CSS style sheet is supposed to use. So for me, I'm going to use let me just use the online version of Bootstrap. So I'm just going to take this from my notes and I'll paste it here. So basically this is now pointing to an online version of Bootstrap. So you can have this, or you can have something like this. So you can have, if you want to use the one locally, you can now have static /css/bootstrap. So that is going to go to static /css/bootstrap .mean.css. Mean just means minified. So once we are done with that, this is, I think I made a mistake, so let me take this and put this within the head of our website. So let me indent all this back to normal. So I'm going to stop here for now so that I can just start the other part of the video, so that none of the videos is above 20 minutes.